Hey, this is Coach Clayton Murray, and the topic of this newsletter is CTE, combat sports. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I love me some combat. I love me some combat. Ever since I was a little kid, I fell in love. I think fighting, martial arts, boxing, like real combat, was the coolest thing on my mind. And I had a God given talent naturally to learn it, to understand it, to see it, to demonstrate it, to be fascinated by it. No one in my family imprinted that on me. I think that's really important too, is that there's just a fascination with the martial arts aspect of it, the actual ability to defend oneself. And essentially, that whole idea of being a superhero, right? Knowing how to kick ass and make it look cool, but also really knowing how to kick ass. And, in my life, there was stuff that happened when I was a kid where there was violence that happened to people that I knew, and I was bullied. I was a chubby fat kid who got bullied and grew up in the foster care system, so knowing how to fight for me it just made me feel safe. I think fundamentally it made me feel safe, and it could protect the loved ones that weren't able to be protected when you're a little kid. So not everybody really wants to hit or hurt, and neither did I as a kid, but it was just I needed that safety, and if I didn't have it, then I would be walking around feeling like a victim, fearful, and I already was. So for me, when martial arts became something that was introduced to me, I grabbed hold of it, and but more than that, I think I just had a fascination, and it wouldn't have mattered what family I was born into. I had a fascination with real martial arts, like WWE. I was never interested in that as a kid. I was always interested in the boxing, like, oh my God, these guys are gladiators, modern day, and, they're doing it for the love of the sport. And I think a lot of times, society looks at combat and they see what kind of is demonstrated as barbarism, right? They see, Neanderthals, but what they don't see is the martial arts. They don't see the art. They don't see the grace. They don't see all the aspects that go into one of the most exhilarating, magnificent sports where two people or if someone starts fighting, everybody stops what they're doing, drops their popcorn and watches. Like, fighting is literally innate in all the animal kingdom. And whether you did or not, your ancestors absolutely knew that was imperative for them to know how to defend themselves and defend others, even more importantly. So let's talk about CTE though. So I think a lot of times as an athletic training major, athletic training is not personal training. This is rehab. So when someone gets injured on the sidelines of your favorite football team, the guys who run out are the athletic trainers. They are more inclined to be called athletic therapists, but that's just not how the degree is set up. But I mean, that's what they do. They do therapy, rehabilitation on injuries, and they have to pass a medical exam to do that. And they have to know all the laws and all the protocols and all that stuff with concussion protocol. So most of you who've done athletics will know, but a lot of people don't. So when you look at CTE, it's something we saw maybe 60, 70 years ago with football. They didn't really know a lot about it, right? Leather helmet days where, people didn't really know that, hey, you get hit in the head, no matter, even if you're heading a ball in soccer, it's terrible. Any impact to your brain is terrible. Even if you cover a punch or cover a shot, you get hit in the head. I've seen people get hit in the head with volleyball, with soccer, with the most minute things you can possibly imagine, and they're concussive blows because the brain wasn't able to prepare the body for impact. So the brain is soft tissue and the skull is hard. But if your brain moves in your skull, it's hitting hard substance. So I think a lot of times let's just look at the numbers. Let's look at CTE, and let me just break this down from the national statistics that were done, and I can source this. But this is actually based off of the UFC's data. And this doesn't account for sparring. This doesn't account for previous injuries to athletics. There is no oversight. All they have is the Association for Ringside Physicians listed guidelines. This is the sport of business. I think a lot of people don't realize that mixed martial arts is a business and that fighting is a business as well as an art. And so you kind of have to know what you're getting into if you want to go into it, and I think the average income for fighters in the UFC, the premier organizations, like $50,000-$60,000 after taxes, before taxes. I don't know. It's not a lot of money. So I think that by educating people to be a little smarter in their training and to implement some sort of procedures that are already available in other organizations. We were going to gain some great wisdom and insight on a beautiful sport, dangerous business, right? So looking at the PubMed statistics for concussive blows to the brain, you see that on average in a fight, they did this for both males and females, there's 7.7 or 7.73 strikes per head in the head per minute for men, 6.6 for females. And that, what does that mean? There's 116 total hits to the head that are significant each fight, right? Significant blows. 26% of women who fight get knocked out. 31% of men get knocked out. And this is total. This is not including body shots. 54% of heavyweights get knocked out, right? It's crazy. 54. If you're a heavyweight, you have a 54% chance of knocking your guy out or getting knocked out in a fight in MMA. 38% chance in lightweight. So that's almost half the people who are participating. This doesn't even mean that if you didn't get knocked out or you know, it doesn't mean you didn't have a concussion. This means that you definitely got a concussion if you got knocked out. But the statistics show that the heavier your weight is, the higher likelihood you're going to get knocked out. 12.5% of flyweights get knocked out. So you see there's more impact, there's more force production at a higher weight, less impact with less weight, less mass at the lower weights. Out of all the fights, they did a study of about 2,500. 88.1 of these had KOs out of 855. So I looked at most KOs. Yeah, so a lot of knockouts. All fights 855. So out of 855 of those fights, 88.1 had KOs. Most knockouts happen in the second round, so that tells you a lot about conditioning and a lot about kind of how knockouts are happening. 6 to 8 minute mark is when most concussions, most knockouts in fights happen. Significant strikes are those performed at a distance in the clinch or on the ground, is what they were measuring to. And the UFC does not calculate small strikes to the clinch or the ground of an opponent. So they don't calculate those little hammer fists, but those are doing damage. That's what I want to get the point, is that they're just measuring who's going to sleep and who's not, right? The people who are getting concussed are still going undiagnosed, right? They're still subconcussive blows. And not all these knockouts are concussive, or not all TKOs, right? Someone stops the fight. Not all of them are concussive. So we have to look at that. What can we do to stop some of that, right? Well, one, talking about it and getting the numbers out there and just taking a look at it. So when you're sparring and training and you leave with a headache, that's brain damage. That's swelling in your brain. Just want you to know that. You're not cool, and you might feel empowered, but if you're fighting in a fight or flight state in training, I promise you that your fine motor skills are not being tuned well. You cannot relax and learn when you are afraid, period, right? Your body it's good experience, bad for your brain. So you do the math. Is it worth that 50, 60K if you make it in, which is very unlikely if you keep getting knocked in the head, right? So let's just look at this. There's something called impact testing. All fighters can do this. It's like $12 online. And they caught out of 1,500 participants, they have about an 82.4% correctly identified. And they missed about 17.6 of that. Right? So there's like a 10% error margin. When you take an impact test, it measures your cognitive, it measures some of these other things, verbal, stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily measure everything. That's why it's about 85 to 80% accurate. Meaning that it's a good measurement to kind of look at. It's not a sole measurement. So you want an athletic trainer, someone else to kind of take a secondary thing. But if insurance and all those things aren't there, then at the very least knowing, hey, if my brain keeps deteriorating online, no one has to know about this data. You just go online, you take it. And you can literally measure if you're getting worse. And you got to make a real argument. Dude, you're young, you're a powerful martial artist, or you're whatever it is. If you're getting hit in the head in any sport, your brain is getting damaged and you are less of who you are, right? So really consider training safely. I don't think that combat sports are evil. I think that the risk for damage in all sports is high However, when you're training and there's no protocols in place for you, and everybody else gets an athletic trainer, combat sports does not, and you're in the sport of combat, you should be the one getting some rehab. But we don't have it implemented correctly yet, and hopefully that can change, because tremendous warriors with courage and heart and grace and skill, and they live a full-time job chasing a dream, and that's beautiful. Modern day warriors putting it all on the line. Gotta have respect for it. It's a dangerous game. Know the numbers. People are getting knocked out and concussed. Stop adding to it in training. Learn how to literally the science of getting better. Is training intense, but taking the hit off of the brain, right? You can go heavy to any other part of the body. And I'm going to go over this in detail in other videos coming up. So leave some comments down below if you want me to source that. Just go on PubMed and look up UFC concussions, and all the data is right there. And again, we need more of this stuff talked about, because I think a lot of times there's this grandiose ego where men are living in a delusional reality because they're still 20 to 30 years old. Give it some time, man. This is your brain, this is your family, this is your life. Take that seriously. Don't let other people treat you like Neanderthals if you don't want to be perceived as one. Stop hitting each other in the head hard and sparring. And know when is the time and place. Know the numbers. Again, there's a million things you can do with mixed martial arts skills, and you don't always have to go and bash someone in the brain or get bashed in the brain to be a badass. So thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you later.